Okay, so Columns Pro. You're probably watching this video if you've used the normal default columns and you just wanted more. Okay. No, I'm not going to go through all these settings. A lot of the settings are exactly the same as in the normal column stack. So the spacing here, the alignment options, the content alignment, visibility, right? They're all the same. Now we have dividers. We'll go into dividers in a little bit, but I just wanted to dive into show you what we can do extra with Columns Pro. Now, first thing you'll notice is inside Columns Pro, no matter how many columns you add, they're always going to be full width. You're not going to actually be able to see the column layouts within edit mode. So here I've just added a little bit of content. And what you'll notice is when you look at each individual column, there is sizing settings for each column. And there's a lot more, okay? So here we have the default sizing options that you're probably familiar with from other columns. Okay, so your 12 base grid. And then you would set your sizing for each one within each column individually. Now, what you might notice is there's also an advanced option within sizing to give you the exact control that you might need if the simple sizing isn't exactly what you want, right? I strongly suggest that you use the simple sizing options if you can. The reason is it will give you a much more predictable look and layout, to your pages, because these use predefined layouts and grids that just kind of work well together. So if you start diverging from that too much, you're going to have certain layouts that just don't look and don't mesh properly. Okay. So here, for the more advanced users, we give you the options, right? You can have percentage width, pixel width, viewport width. And you can have different sizing for small, medium, and large. You can have minimum and maximum width as well. And then we also give you access to the exact breakpoints for that sizing. Okay, so we give you a lot of options here. A lot of really advanced stuff. So for example, here, let's say I wanted to give column 1 a percentage of 30%. And if we look at column 2, it's just set to be small auto. So essentially what that means is column 2 is going to eat up the rest of the space, and we should have a 30-70 split. Let's preview and have a look. And there we go. You see column 1 is 30% width, and column 2 is auto, so it's taking up the rest of the width of the page. And that's exactly what we defined. Now, what you'll notice is on each individual column, we have the ability to define vertical alignment, content alignment, and visibility on top of what is inside Columns Pro. So in Columns Pro, we can define vertical alignment and content alignment, but then we can override that for a particular column. So let's say, for example, by default, I wanted my vertical alignment to be middle, but on a particular column, I wanted vertical alignment to override it and be bottom for some reason, okay? This allows us a lot of control because we can define, if we have multiple columns, we can define a default at the Columns Pro level, but then override that value at the individual column size as well. So to add more columns to a stack, simply you can click on the plus button. You can add a column. You can copy and paste columns as well. And like here, I have 3 columns. If I wanted a 4th, I would just simply copy and paste it. And now I have 4 columns. And when I preview that, you'll notice that I now have a 4-column layout. So again, this is definitely for Pro because of the various options and overrides. We weren't able to build out the column layout within edit mode. You see everything as if they're on top of each other. However, using the settings, you can define exactly the sizing of every single column. Now, there's a few new settings as well inside columns, and you'll notice that there's ordering. What ordering allows you to do is to swap the order of your columns based on the breakpoint. So for small, medium, large, you can have different orders of your columns. So maybe on small, you have 1, 2, 3, and then on medium, you have 2, 3, 1, or something like that. This is really common, like, for example, in 3-column layouts, where maybe you wanted the middle column to be at the top when it breaks to small or something like that. We'll have a specific video on ordering to show you that. So check out that video on Columns Pro ordering. Next is offsets. And offsets allows us to basically offset by column. So for example, here, if I go and do, let's say this is 3, And then I do, let's do 3 here. And we'll leave that auto. Okay. So this one I set to a size of 3. And if I do an offset of 1, basically that's going to shift that column over by 1 column unit. Okay. Does that make sense? So let's go ahead and preview that. And if I go ahead and turn that off, what you'll notice is that shifted over. If you notice that content shifted over, if I shift it by 5, you'll notice that it shifts everything over by 5, right? So it allows you to basically add some empty cells, to the beginning of something. It allows you to shift content over. There isn't too much use. This is definitely a corner case. When you need this, it's going to be very helpful, but it's probably not something you're going to be using a lot. And then similarly to the container stack, we actually allow you to do some semantic HTML in here so you can actually define things. So like if you wanted to build a layout using Columns Pro that had a sidebar in your main content, you can definitely do that now within each individual column, right? So you can define your sidebar because this is going to be a sidebar because maybe it's a 2-column layout or a 3-column layout. Maybe you have 2 sidebars. You can set the this to actually be an aside instead of having to add an additional container stack to do that.